Hello, juniors. I'd like to talk about your research proposals that are coming up. First of all, the logistics. They're to be 5 to 7 pages long. Font can be anywhere from 10 to 12. And in order to give you maximum flexibility in fitting it in, spacing could be single or double. I don't care which. You do need to adhere to APA style. Please double check that. And if you aren't sure what that includes, Purdue has a website about APA style that is extremely helpful. As part of APA style, you'll need a cover page. Now, I know I don't require that specifically for all assignments, but for those with any particular length, it is necessary, and this is one of those. At the top of your typing, in the middle of the page, I'd like you to start with Individual Research Proposal 1. Then your name, the due date, the topic of your paper, and then my name followed by PhD. I'd like you to identify at the beginning what's the aim of this study, and then either hypotheses or research questions. You need at least one hypothesis or one research question, actually a pair of research questions. If you have more, then that's fine. I'm not requiring an abstract, although that is APA required. I don't think it's necessary in this particular case. You'll have a background section. So having already written a lit review, I would encourage you, and I think most of you would probably do this anyway, is to borrow from that. However, I do not want you to use the whole thing. The point of the lit review is to be very thorough and detailed. For the research proposal, the background section is just setting up your discussion of your research, so you're going to have to condense it. Things to consider in there are conceptual material. What are the ideas driving this? This could be theories specifically, or it could be something more, just an idea that's been explored by other researchers. Things to consider extracting from your lit review would be other studies that prompted the questions. So what other study came to some conclusion but then said, here's the next natural question, and you're going to try and answer that. Or similar studies with a different population, where you could say, here's what was found in this situation, but I'm going to look at a different group of people. And any background information that describes why is your study important. So make the case. Why does this matter? Research shouldn't be done just to say you're doing research. It should be done to answer a question that matters in some way. Are people suffering in some way and it needs to be alleviated? Is there something that's been discovered that helps people? Is there information that we should dig into about people that talks about what things are connected to what other things, that by understanding those better, people could improve the quality of life or gain new insights into something important. So you'll be addressing what have other studies found. And it will be important, just like with your lit reviews, to, and even more important here, is to craft this information to address that there's a knowledge gap and that your study can help fill that. Next, it's important to describe your proposed sample. It's very important here to remember that this should fit your aim and either hypotheses or research questions. So what is it you're trying to find out? And do you need specific groups of people for that? Are they limited by age, gender, or other demographics? If so, then say that. If not, then say that too. Do you need people that believe certain things or that have experienced certain things in your study? Then that's important to mention. How many do you need? Now, I don't expect you to already know that. And then the answer will vary depending on the exact study. So if you can figure it out through your reading, or you could ask me and give me specifics on what you're looking at, then we can talk through approximately how many you need. So describe your methods, how you're going to reach out to these people. You should have some sort of speech when you engage with them. Now, people gather data in a lot of ways, so this could be an oral speech if you're going to classes or you're meeting people in the hallways at campus. It could be a written statement that goes on top of a survey or a paper that comes before the survey, or that could be at the top of an electronic survey. What are you going to do to protect confidentiality? And also to communicate clearly to them that you're going to protect confidentiality. So, for example, if you are going to gather data in person, sometimes it's helpful to have a box with a lid on it and a slot on the top so that when people drop them in, they're not handing them to you. In this way, if they're dropping them into this box, it's harder for you, even if you wanted to pick through who answered what. If they're handing them to you, then people feel a little less secure, and they are a little less secure. Do you need to coordinate with specific people? Do you need to ask professors to go to their classes? And if so, what classes? Do you need to collect information at the union? Then you ask someone at the union for that permission, find out who that would be. If you're going to do an electronic survey, then you'll need a list of students at VU from Greg Stinson, and I would help set that up, or next year Rachel will help set that up, and he's assisted with this in the past. So Greg Stinson, Stinson. What software do you plan to use? We have Qualtrics for gathering data. Some of you have used SurveyMonkey now, which is also useful, although Qualtrics is a bit better. Also, the software you'll be using for analyzing the data would include SPSS, which is on campus, or I'm going to be teaching you how to use Jamovi, which is a smaller program. It doesn't take up as much space electronically on your computer, and you can download it and do the analysis, and once you learn it, it's actually simpler than SPSS. You'll need to address, just briefly, the statistical tests that you plan to use. And part of this is, what are your research questions? What does your questionnaire look like? And then, most importantly, and as a result of those things, what type of data? So, for example, if you have a dichotomous question where you have two choices, yes or no, and then you have continuous data, like how many times this year have you done X, then the best statistic for that would be a t-test. Now, I know we've only talked about this on a limited basis, and for most of you, this is introductory. I'm happy to go step by step through this process with you. But you'll need to have that conversation with me, and you'll need to identify the types of questions. You don't need to answer every single statistic you're going to use, but I do want you to identify at least one statistic that you'll be using and give examples of the type of questions that would fit into that so that it's clear. I can see you have some sense of what you're doing. Exactly what statistics you use and what your questionnaire looks like may change, and that's okay, but you need to have a plan in place. Plans for research almost always change. But when people just think, well, I'll just figure it out as I go along, it's a very chaotic process, and it almost never produces good research. It'll be important for you in this proposal to define the terms, so defining your constructs, basically, or to clarify things for a casual reader. What limitations do you anticipate? Will you have access to the ideal number of students or, participants? Will the information be secondhand or opinion versus direct? For example, asking people about their grade point average is not the same as actually having access to their grade point average. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, but that would be the sort of thing to identify in your limitations because it may be somewhat inaccurate. What are the implications? Why does your study matter? This goes back to what you would have said earlier, pointing to why does the issue matter. Now we want to talk about why does your study matter. So convince me, the reader, that this is something worth studying. This could be conceptual. It could be practical, that it has this very specific benefit. It needs to include a discussion of what's new about your study. And when you're talking about the implications and addressing why your study matters, this could be why it matters to researchers. It fills a gap in the research. It could be for practitioners because it has this very specific benefit. Or it could be people with a particular condition, so people who are depressed. Maybe it provides insights that might help them through their depression. All those are entirely legitimate here, and it's best if you are specific into what rationale is addressed to researchers or practitioners or people with a condition, and it could be all three. But the more you're specific, the better the paper is. Some additional suggestions I have for you. Use the concepts from the Royce text. For example, we recently talked about surveying and sampling. Identify what type of survey you're doing, what type of sampling you're doing. Show that you're learning something from the readings and from the class experience. Proofread your proposal carefully. I would even suggest find someone else to look over it. Maybe you could look over their paper as well. Look for content issues, look for clarity issues, and just errors, whether grammatical or something else. Help each other out here. The idea is for it to be successful and to be clear. And then it's very important, and one of the things I'll be looking for is, do the pieces fit together? So when you identify your research question, does that fit with your aim? And do those both fit with what's in your lit review? And then most importantly, do all those earlier things fit with what your proposal is to research? They should all fit together neatly. If you're unsure about something, whether it fits together, please ask me. Aside from the things I've already mentioned, that content that will be there, I will also be looking for how well it flows. Is it easy to read moving from one section to the next? Is it clear in what you're saying? Did you give enough detail? Yeah, that's my dog outside. Probably sees another dog. Is it coherent? And do the pieces all fit? Did you use course content? Did you demonstrate that you understand some of the things we've been studying and apply them to your particular ideas? I'll check for the grammar. The guidelines that I've laid out, did you adhere to those? And as far as length and so on, they're pretty flexible, but not completely flexible. And did you use APA style? And as I said before, you'll need a cover page, but not an abstract. Thanks very much. We'll come back to this, but this is the primary presentation of this, and there'll be time for asking questions, and you're always welcome to do that in a discussion online or through emails. Thank you.